My name's Ethan. I'm 32. And if you've ever felt like the family afterthought, the extra place setting, the, oh, right, he's here kind of relative, then you'll know exactly how this story begins. For as long as I can remember, my family has had this almost magical ability to make me feel like I never truly fit in. I wasn't the golden child, not the rebel, and definitely not the baby of the bunch. I was more like a stand-in, the guy who showed up, offered a polite smile, and quietly picked up the tab when no one else did. I didn't stir the pot. I didn't raise my voice. I was just there, and somehow simply existing seemed to bother them more than anything else. But it wasn't always this way. When I was a kid, I honestly thought we were your typical family. We had dinners together, took vacations, even shared a few Christmas mornings that actually made me feel like I belonged. Then things shifted. Maybe it happened after Dad walked out, or maybe it was when my older brother started raking in six figures, and Mom suddenly decided he could do no wrong. Whatever the moment was, I started fading into the background, less like a family member and more like the static in the room. I moved out when I was 19, paid my own way through college, and slowly climbed the ladder at a mid-sized logistics company. These days, I make solid money, but you'd never guess that from the way my family treats me. If anything, the more I accomplished, the more distant they became. Like my success wasn't mine to be proud of, like it was either something I didn't deserve or something they should benefit from without ever acknowledging what it took to get there. The latest slap in the face came wrapped in white linen napkins and a $3,600 tab. My cousin Sophie, Aunt Diane's youngest, was having an engagement dinner. Not the wedding, just the pre-party. Apparently, a proposal with a diamond that could double as a lighthouse wasn't extravagant enough. My aunt, who to this day has never said anything kind to me unless it involved borrowing money, declared it a family-sponsored event. That's our family's favorite euphemism for, Ethan is footing the bill. And how did I find out I was even invited? Not through a call, not even a quick text, a forwarded email. No greeting, no hope you can make it, just the date, time, and location, with a note from my mom at the bottom that read, "Don't be late," delivered in her trademark passive-aggressive tone. I stared at that email for a long time, wondering if I should even bother going. I hadn't seen most of them in over a year, and the last time I did, my mom introduced me to one of her friends by saying, "That's the one who's still single, still renting, and still doesn't come around enough." She said it with a laugh. I didn't, but in spite of everything in me telling me to stay home, I went. I'm still not sure why. Maybe I was clinging to some tiny shred of hope that they'd finally see me, or maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that I was finally over needing their approval. The restaurant was high-end, not quite Michelin level, but definitely out of range for most of my relatives if they weren't playing pretend. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a crisp navy blazer and neatly pressed slacks, hoping to at least look like I belonged. The hostess asked for my name, then looked at me with mild confusion before handing me a plastic wristband. "Buffett wristband," she said, pointing toward a dimly lit back corner with a few sad-looking silver trays. I blinked. "Isn't this a seated dinner?" She checked her list. "You're with the Gomez party, right? Looks like you're marked down for the kids section." I forced a smile, thanked her, and made my way inside. The room was bright, buzzing with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Long tables were arranged in a U shape around an over-the-top floral centerpiece, where Sophie and her fiancé posed for endless photos. At the head of that U was the adult table, the so-called VIP section, where my mom, Aunt Diane, my brother and his wife, and a handful of cousins were already seated and sipping champagne. My chair, nowhere to be found. "Ethan, over here," my mom called out, waving like she was trying to flag down a taxi. She motioned toward a rickety fold-out table in the back, surrounded by teenagers and distant cousins. "You can sit with the kids. Grown-ups are up there," she said, snapping, as she tossed me a plastic fork, still wrapped in a flimsy napkin. I just stared at it. Then came Aunt Diane, the same woman who still owes me $2,000 from back in 2019, bursting into laughter. "Just be glad we let you come this time," she sneered, twinkling with mockery. I didn't say a word. I sat down quietly. The conversations around me were about TikTok trends, college rejections, and who got caught vaping behind the school gym. I sipped lukewarm water and poked at some dry chicken that had obviously been sitting out too long. Not a single person from the head table stopped by. Not once. I might as well have been invisible. At some point, my brother stood up and raised a glass. To Sophie and Tyler, may your love be as strong as your Instagram game. Everyone roared with laughter. I clapped twice, out of sheer politeness. I wanted to leave, badly. But something kept me there. Call it curiosity, or maybe spite. But I stayed. Later in the evening, while folks were mingling and the DJ was spinning background pop, a man approached me. He looked tired, balding, probably the event manager. He leaned down, checked something on his clipboard, and said, "Hey, just confirming, you're handling the $3,600 balance tonight, right?" I blinked. "I'm sorry?" He flipped the page and pointed. This was the agreement, $1,500 already covered, and the rest, $3,600, is due before we close up. It's under your name. My stomach sank. Who told you to use my name? I asked. Diane Foster, he replied, deadpan. She said you were handling the payment. Called it your gift to the family. For a moment, I couldn't even find words. I glanced over at the head table. Mom was laughing, swirling her wine like she hadn't a care in the world, while Aunt Diane gave her an approving pat on the back. Honestly, I wasn't even shocked anymore. I just felt hollow, then weirdly calm. I smiled faintly, stood up, and gestured toward their table. You might want to ask the grown-ups, I said. He raised an eyebrow. So, you're not? Nope, I cut in. I'm just the guy with the plastic fork. He studied me for a second, gave a single nod, and walked off. I gathered my blazer, adjusted the sleeves, and exited through the side door, unnoticed and certainly not missed. I didn't head straight home. Instead, I sat in my car across the street with the engine off and the windows cracked just enough to catch the dull bass vibrating from the party inside. Through the windshield, I watched waiters carrying trays of leftover cake and half-full glasses of Prosecco. Families clustered together for one last round of grinning selfies in front of a banner that read, "Forever starts now." It was ironic, really. A room full of people toasting love and unity while simultaneously icing out one of their own, like it was a family tradition. I should have been furious. I should have felt a fiery wave of betrayal rising in my chest. But the truth? I didn't feel much at all. Just drained, exhausted from pretending, from constantly biting my tongue for people who saw me as nothing more than a walking wallet. My phone buzzed once. A text from my brother. Nice of you to leave early. Then another from Mom. You're being dramatic again. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Dramatic? Right. Because apparently being ambushed with a $3,600 bill at an event I wasn't even properly invited to is just part of the family bonding experience. That was the moment something shifted. Not a loud, snapping kind of shift. More like a quiet, final click into place. I opened my banking app and scrolled through the shared accounts I had foolishly agreed to help manage years ago. Because here's the thing. While they had no problem mocking me to my face, they were more than comfortable tying their messes to my name behind the scenes. Mom's utilities? Under my name. She swore it was temporary, just until she rebuilt her credit. Aunt Diane's emergency dental surgery? I co-signed. My brother's second honeymoon, after he blew the budget on VIP extras? My card covered the difference. They always promised to pay me back. They never did. So one by one, I started shutting things down. Not out of anger, out of clarity. I went through each account, electric, gas, cable, cell phones. Every single bill I'd been quietly footing in the name of family duty. I turned off services, canceled subscriptions, removed my name, and wherever I could, I scheduled full account closures. Then I opened a brand new bank account at a different branch and began the slow, satisfying process of transferring every last dollar out of their reach. Every single cent. And then came the final perfect touch. I called the event venue, A pleasant woman named Alyssa picked up. I explained that I'd apparently been listed as the one footing the bill for a dinner I never agreed to host. I asked her to confirm if they had a signed contract in my name. They didn't. Ma'am, I said calmly, I never authorized that payment. I won't be covering it, and if my name is ever used again without consent, I'll have my lawyer take it from there. Alyssa stammered, apologized, and said she'd speak to the person who made the booking. I thanked her and ended the call. Then finally I drove home. The fallout began the next morning. 7:12 a.m. My phone buzzed. A group text. Ethan, the venue says the card declined. What's happening? 7:29 a.m. A separate message from my mom. Why aren't the lights working? Did something happen with the power bill? 7:34 a.m. Aunt Diane chimed in. Apparently my credit is frozen because of you. This is so unfair. By 8:15 a.m., my phone showed 27 unread messages, 3 voicemails, and 2 missed calls from my brother. But the real meltdown began when Sophie herself, the blushing bride-to-be, called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Ethan, she said, her voice already strained, like she was holding back tears. I'm really sorry about how they treated you. I had no idea they put the bill in your name. She hesitated, then added, it's just, the venue won't release the photos until the final payment goes through, and they say your name is on the account. Could you maybe cover it? Just for now, and we'll figure it out later? I paused. I sat at a fold-out table, I said, my tone flat, with a plastic fork. You've posted over 100 photos, I continued. I'm not in a single one. So tell me, why exactly would I pay for it? She stammered, trying to form a response. I didn't mean to leave you out, I swear. It was Mom and Auntie Diane and ask the grown-ups, I cut her off, then ended the call. That night my phone lit up again, but this time the tone had changed. First came guilt from my mom. I raised you better than this. Don't punish the whole family over one silly mix-up. Then my brother chimed in. You're overreacting. They're just old. That's how they joke. Don't tear the family apart over this. But Aunt Diane took it a step further. If you don't clean this up, I'm going to tell people you committed fraud with my accounts. That was it. The line I wasn't willing to let them cross. I went into my files and pulled up every piece of evidence I had. Every email, every form she'd signed when I co-signed her loan. Documents with her consent in her own handwriting. I compiled everything. Then I sent it all to her, to my mom, and just to make it official, I looped in my lawyer. Subject, shared financial accounts. Legal threats. Hi, Grant, just making sure you're aware of the threats being made toward me. Silence. For 2 days, not a single reply. Then the apologies started trickling in. Weak, half-hearted attempts at damage control. Sorry if you felt left out. We didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Let's just move past it. But the message that actually made me smirk came from Alyssa, the event manager. She forwarded an email from Aunt Diane, frantic, asking if the remaining $3,600 could be charged to her card. It bounced 3 times. Alyssa's note was brief. Balance still unpaid. Late fees are being added. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee slowly, letting the warmth settle in. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar. Peace. I wasn't their ATM anymore. I wasn't the spare part at family functions. I was done. But just when I thought that was the end of it, just when the silence had started to feel like a blessing, there was a knock at my door. I stared at it for a few seconds before opening. It was my mom. Her face was red, eyes puffy, and she clutched an envelope in both hands. And that was when things really began to unravel. Some part of me, foolish maybe, still hoped this was the moment. The moment she'd look me in the eye and finally say what I'd been longing to hear. I'm sorry. We were wrong. We treated you badly. You deserved better. But the second I saw her expression, I knew better. She wasn't here to make things right. She was here to do what she always did, take control of the damage. Ethan, she said, forcing a smile that didn't even try to touch her eyes. Can we talk? She held out the envelope like it was a peace offering. I didn't speak. I just stepped aside and let her in. She walked in like she still owned the place, like this was her domain, even though she hadn't visited once since I bought the house 3 years ago. She sat stiffly on the edge of my couch, like it was some throne that no longer fit. I opened the envelope, half expecting a letter or maybe even a check. Instead, it was a printed invoice from the venue. Unpaid, $3,600 plus a $400 late fee. I looked up at her. She cleared her throat, clasped her hands like she was about to pray, and let out a long, deliberate sigh. I know things got a little tense, she began, but this is getting out of hand. We're family, Ethan. Families don't punish each other like this. I stayed silent. She kept going. Your aunt's credit is frozen. Your brother can't use his business card. Sophie's in tears every night because the venue won't release her engagement photos. And all of this over a seating chart mistake? I raised an eyebrow. A seating chart mistake? She waved her hand, brushing it off like that detail didn't matter. People say things in the heat of the moment, she added. Your aunt was joking. You took it the wrong way. Fine. But dragging this out, shutting off accounts, involving lawyers, that's not how mature people handle things. I crossed my arms and leaned against the wall. You handed me a plastic fork and told me to sit with the kids, I said evenly. You used my name for your gas bill last month without even telling me. And then you put me down as the one covering a $4,000 dinner without asking. That's not a joke. That's taking advantage. She blinked, then shrugged almost casually. It's not like you can't afford it. There it was. That sentence, the fallback excuse, the one they always pulled out to justify everything. He has money. No wife, no kids. He'll be fine. So let's just take a little more. You didn't even ask, I said quietly. You just assumed, like always. She sighed again and stood up, trying to reclaim the power in the room. I know we haven't always made you feel included, she said, but you make it difficult, Ethan. You keep to yourself. You don't come to family things. You never really open up. Maybe if you tried a little harder, we wouldn't have these problems. Tried harder. I almost laughed. I almost screamed. Years of trying flashed through my mind, showing up to gatherings where I was barely acknowledged, sending gifts that no one thanked me for, covering bills that were conveniently forgotten. And now here she was, flipping the blame back onto me, like I hadn't done enough. Instead, I looked her straight in the eyes and asked, if I had told you no about the bill before the dinner, would you have still invited me? She didn't answer. That silence told me everything I needed to know. She tried to pivot, fast. Look, she said, her voice tight, I don't have the money to pay this. And neither does your aunt, she said, her voice tightening. The venue's threatening legal action. Do you really want Sophie starting her marriage in debt? I tilted my head slightly. So you are asking me to pay for it? No, she blurted out, too fast to be honest. I'm asking you to help, to do the right thing. I stepped forward, took the invoice from her hand, and slowly began tearing it in half. Not in a fit of rage, but deliberately, controlled, like I was slicing through a years-old pattern. Her mouth fell open. Ethan, I'm not your wallet, I said quietly, my tone low and even. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your scapegoat. I'm your son. But honestly, I don't think you've seen me that way in a long time. She scoffed, folding her arms. So what? You're cutting all of us off over one stupid party? I shook my head. Not because of a party, because of a pattern. One I'm finally choosing not to be part of anymore. She stood there stunned, and when she couldn't find her footing, she reached for her go-to script. The one she used when I was a teenager and didn't want to give up my paycheck for groceries she never actually bought. You think you're better than us now, huh? She snapped. You think having money makes you superior? You've always been bitter, Ethan. Always. I gave a small nod. Maybe I am bitter, I admitted, but I'm not broke, and I'm not standing here begging my kid to clean up a mess I made. That one hit the mark. She flinched. Her eyes blinked rapidly like she'd just been slapped. Get out, Mom. She opened her mouth again, probably to launch something sharp, something designed to sting, but the look on my face must have stopped her cold. Without another word, she turned and walked out. That was 3 days ago. Since then, the silence has been loud. No group texts, no passive-aggressive 10 p.m. messages, just a kind of quiet I hadn't realized I needed. Not a peep from my brother, nothing from Aunt Diane, not even a courtesy sorry from Sophie. I imagine they're scrambling, trying to figure out how to pay off the balance. Or maybe they're just stewing in the embarrassment. Maybe, just maybe, they're finally realizing that I'm not their financial safety valve anymore. But then, last night, a message came in from an unknown number. Ethan? It's Tyler, Sophie's fiance. I think we need to talk. I didn't know half the stuff they put you through. Please, meet me. That caught me off guard. Tyler had never really been in the middle of the chaos. He was always the quiet one, drifting on the edge of the storm. If he's reaching out to me, something's changed, something serious. And if there's one thing I've learned about my family, it's that they never go down quietly. I stared at his message for a while, unsure whether it was even worth responding. Part of me figured it'd just be more of the same, more excuses, more we didn't mean it, more shifting blame. But another part of me, the part that had sat through years of birthdays at the kiddie table and paid off bills in secret like some ghostly accountant, needed to hear it, not for closure, for confirmation. I wanted to see if anyone in that mess of a family tree still had the guts to be honest. So I told him to meet me at a local cafe. Neutral ground, public, low risk for drama. At least that was the hope. He arrived right on time. Clean button down, jeans, and a face full of nerves. Tyler had always been chill, almost too chill. The kind of guy you didn't notice unless he spoke. And even then, you weren't sure he had much to say. But today, something was different. His shoulders were tight, and he clutched his coffee like it was the only thing keeping him from floating away. "Thanks for coming," he said softly. I just gave a nod and waited. He glanced around the cafe like he needed to make absolutely sure we were alone, then leaned in a little. "I need to tell you something." He hesitated. "I didn't know. I really didn't know what they were doing to you. Not until recently." I stayed quiet and let him continue. "When Sophie first told me about the engagement dinner, she said your name was already on the invoice. She made it sound like you volunteered, like it was a surprise gift you planned. That's what your mom and Diane said too, so I never questioned it." He shook his head, eyes down. "But after the party, when things blew up, when I saw how shaken Sophie was, I started going through the emails. I found the invoice edits. I saw where your name got swapped in. I saw the forwarded contact info. The one from your aunt." He paused, watching for a reaction. I didn't flinch, but inside it felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. I had suspected it, deep down, but hearing it confirmed still hit hard. Tyler looked genuinely ashamed. I confronted Sophie. "She broke down crying," he said. "Told me she didn't want to ask you, that her mom told her you wouldn't care, that you had the money and this was your way of being included." Sophie wanted to believe that, but when she saw where you were sitting, in the back, with the kids, she knew. "She still didn't stop it," I said, flat and cold. He looked down. "I know. She regrets it," he added. "She really does. But the worst part," he continued, voice dropping even lower, "after you left, they laughed. They all did. Like it was some prank you couldn't take. Your mom said he always has to make everything about him. Your aunt called you Mr. Credit Score," Tyler added. I felt my jaw tighten. He saw it. "That's when it hit me," he said quietly. "I don't want to marry into this." That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" "I called off the engagement yesterday," he said, eyes downcast. "Sophie's heartbroken." He paused, then added, "But I told her if she couldn't see the problem until it blew up in her face, and if she was okay being part of that kind of behavior, then we weren't just dealing with a party issue. We had much deeper problems." I leaned back in my chair, letting it sink in. I hadn't expected him to go that far. "She told me," Tyler continued bitterly, "that growing up she was taught love meant money. Whoever paid cared. If you didn't pay, it meant you didn't care enough." He shook his head. "I told her that was one of the most backwards things I've ever heard." He took a breath. I'm not here asking for anything, Ethan. I just wanted you to hear it. I saw what happened, all of it. You're not crazy. You weren't being dramatic. You were being used. I let out a long, steady breath. For the first time in ages, something unknotted inside my chest. Like I'd been dragging around this invisible weight, and someone finally said, I see it. Thank you, I said simply. We didn't talk much after that. He left quietly and I never saw him again. But of course, in my family, news travels fast, especially when it involves something scandalous. Canceling a wedding that's been plastered all over social media for half a year? That's front page gossip in our family circle. And just like that, the messages came flooding in again. My mom, are you happy now? You ruined Sophie's life. You embarrassed all of us. My brother, you seriously need help. No wonder you're alone. Aunt Diane, you'll regret this. One day you'll need us, and we won't be there. I replied to every single one of them with the same word, good. Then I blocked them all, and I didn't feel guilty, didn't feel conflicted. I just felt finished, like a door had finally shut, and I didn't have to stand outside anymore, knocking and hoping someone inside would let me in. Over the next few weeks, I cut every last remaining tie. I sold the car I'd co-signed with my brother, closed the emergency credit line my mom had been dipping into, even canceled the shared Spotify account they all piggybacked on. Because if you're cutting someone out, cut all the strings. And then something beautiful happened. Life got quiet. No more guilt-laced voicemails. No more family invitations that came with hidden price tags. Just silence. Peaceful, undisturbed peace. I spent more time with friends, real ones, the kind who asked how I was doing and didn't follow it up with a favor. I picked up photography again, started hiking on weekends, taught myself to cook things that didn't come out of a box. And once a week, I started volunteering at a local shelter, helping organize donations, manage inventory, just doing what I'm good at, for people who actually appreciated it. It felt good, doing something because I wanted to, not because I was expected to. Then one Sunday morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting, instantly familiar. It was from my grandmother, the only person in the entire family who had ever treated me with kindness and respect. She lived 2 hours away, hadn't made it to the party because of her health. The letter was short. Ethan heard about the party, heard what you did. Good. You've always deserved better than them. Come visit me. I made your favorite cookies. Love, Grandma. I laughed out loud right there at the mailbox, the wind tugging at the edges of the paper. That night, I got in my car with a full tank of gas, paid for with my own money, and drove to her house. And this time, it wasn't for anyone else. No plastic forks, no kiddie tables, no hidden bills waiting at the end. Just a warm chair by the fire, beside the one person who'd always seen me for who I am, even when everyone else pretended not to. I wasn't the placeholder anymore. I was home. Finally, home.